And we're live. Welcome everybody to the Azure and AI Show. Today we have Dan Ray with us, and we have Tushar Kumar, who's going to do a talk for us on Azure Arc. So I'll leave it over to you, Tushar.
Thank you so much, Frank. Thank you so much, Dan. Okay, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, whatever time zone you are in. So we'll be starting with, I'll just quickly share my screen.
Yeah,
Perfect. Let me share my entire screen and go here.
yeah, that's good.
That's
There you
visible.
go. Yeah, you see that there?
Perfect. So hello, everyone. Today's session is going to be about Azure Arc, and we are going to talk about innovation anywhere with Azure Arc. Before we get into the technical stuff, before we start talking about all the goodness that Azure comes with the product Azure Arc, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Tushar Kumar. I am a cloud security lead at Kodak Ireland. All of my socials, you can find me on at follow Tushar, either any platform that you look for. And basically, we are going to talk today about Azure Arc and what all things we have within Azure Arc, what all we can do. And along with that, we are going to look at a quick demo of how Azure Arc we can enable for our servers, how we can do a couple of stuff with Azure Arc as well in a real life scenario. So before getting into that, right, we have we have multiple industries, and what is the challenges or opportunities that we look in multiple industries. So if you look at manufacturers, they are looking at streamlining their process of factories. They are looking at how they can utilize digital technologies in terms of reducing their cost. If we look at retailers, there is always a retail challenge, how we make it online, how we make things how we make products available to the end customer more in streamlined and easy way. If you look at healthcare, there is always some or other demand on around IT technologies, and you always see like billions getting spent around that, and as well as you see it because of lack of strategy or because of lack of controls, you see there is a lot of data breaches as well. Same goes for the financial sector, and financial sector has been always the, I'll say, the top tier where we are looking at what all customer journeys that you can do. And basically, it is a big challenge within the financial sector when you're looking at data residency perspective, when you're looking at specific user areas where you have money involved. That's always a risk. And also from infrastructure perspective, that's the most friction what I have seen moving to cloud, adopting cloud, or getting into the cutting edge technologies, because there is always some risk, some compliances that you need to follow. So what is the customer aspirations that we are looking at? So what we need is, we need application accelerated application development. We need our governance and security of our digital estate. We need our products to be delivered as services. We need more and more data. Everything is generating data. So we want to transform our data estate. We want to do more and more of our current data. And the last thing is, which is always a pain, is meeting the changing regulations. So one day you have GDPR, other day you'll come up with, the government will come up with something else, or there'll be a new regulation in place that you have to comply to. So how we go with all these? So the answer comes as Azure. We have a platform. It's not for the data centers only, it's for all. And that's where this is a Microsoft statement that Azure is world's computer. You can use your services, whatever the way you like, the way it should be, the way it suits your organization and your business needs. So moving towards, we already have, when we talk about Azure, right, we already have a stack of services. So what we are talking about, from our security, operations, our governance, we have all the stuff in place. When we are talking about services, there is tons and tons of services available on Azure at this point of time. I at some point of time, I used to do talks and I used to say, okay, there is 300 services available on Azure, and it has, over the past few years, it has grown so tremendously that now we have even lost count how many services we have at this point. So that's there. We have the cloud infrastructure, which is the scale that we are getting, the world-class infrastructure that Microsoft is providing over 65 plus data centers locations, and as well as Microsoft's other tools and experiences that Microsoft provides. But all of those is good when we are looking at cloud only strategy. So when we are having conversation around cloud adoption framework, right? Always the way it works is uh, we start with the discussion. Okay, let's move everything to cloud. We get into discoveries. We do a full set of assessments. We find out all the things. Okay, you have X so and so G, so and so things running on your infrastructure. Let's do a cloud migration. And then someone comes in and say, no, no, this service requires to be on-prem, or this service cannot be moved on-prem, or this service has some data protection or regulation that it cannot leave my premises, and those kind of things comes into play. And then it always goes down to somewhere, if you are having a really good transformation, around 95% of your infrastructure moves to cloud. If you are looking at 90% of your infrastructure moves to cloud. But what happens with the rest? And what if we are running it on prem and we still want to utilize our cloud goodness that we are getting? Then comes the Azure Arc. So what happens is, you're getting all the cloud regions, the 50 plus Azure cloud regions. You are getting the capabilities to integrate your multi-cloud. And yes, that's true. It is totally independent of what cloud platform you're using. You're going with GCP, you're going with AWS, you're going with any other cloud. You want to have a hybrid cloud environment, want to have a multi-cloud environment. All of those is included. You want to have a regional edge, kind of operational, your operator DCs, or maybe your co-location providers. Azure Arc supports those as well. If you have any IT edge in terms of your customer data centers or a small branch offices, those are also covered within this. So if we go with all these, what we get is, we get Azure Arc enabled services, we get Azure Arc enabled infrastructure, and Azure Arc enabled devices. So we are going to touch upon this in coming slides. And basically what happens is, you are getting all the tools and the experience that you used to get with Microsoft Azure within within your premises, and as well as getting into even different areas like co-location providers, or maybe customer DCs or branch offices. You are getting the same experience all across. So when we talk about Azure Arc, right, so basically there are four specific pillars that we talk about. First thing is develop cloud native and operate anywhere. So when I say develop cloud native, so what you're getting is, you're getting all the best functionalities of Azure, like for the likes of maintaining all the servers, for the likes of maintaining Azure Kubernetes service, for the likes of logic apps, for the likes of event grid and all those stuff. You're getting all the cloud native stuff with the flexibility that you can operate anywhere. So let's say you are having data sovereignty issues for adopting cloud, and you are saying, okay, I am living in Ireland. that's not going to be a true statement, but still, let's say you're living in some part of the world where there is no data center, there is no Microsoft data center, and the data protection rule says you cannot move your data out. Yeah, and Microsoft presence is not there at that point of time. You can use your own data center. You can put you can put Azure Arc on top of it and get all the Azure goodness. Second goes for harness data insights from cloud to edge. So it's basically no matter where your platform is sitting, when no matter where your environment is, you are getting all the data goodness, all the intelligent services, and as well as you are getting all the AI capabilities as well around that. The third thing is secure, govern, secure and govern your access controls. So basically, the way Azure Arc is defined, you can extend your all of your Microsoft security services to your own data center, to your own co-located servers, environments, whatever you are running there in terms of SQL, in terms of servers, in terms of Kubernetes service, you will be able to manage that. And we are going to talk about each and every pillars in depth in coming slides as well. The last one is flexibility to meet regulatory connectivity needs. So this is what I was talking about in terms of regulations, in terms of compliances. What you're getting is you're getting your data under your own data center boundaries. So you're meeting the regulatory compliances. Plus, you are getting all the Azure goodness in terms of policies, in terms of governance controls to meet the regulatory requirements. And in some cases, if the data, if your application is latency sensitive or something like that, that you feel that requires it to be nearby to your offices or maybe in within your data center, you are getting all the connectivity needs around that as well. So first one we are going to talk about, which is develop cloud native and operate anywhere. What does that actually means? So what all you can do in terms of developing cloud native, you can build your own you can build your own cloud native apps likes of Kubernetes. You can build uh, your own data management and infrastructure, like likes of SQL Server, likes of Postgres server. You can have a consistent GitOps and policy-driven deployments within your cloud, within your Kubernetes cluster. So basically, all the GitHub goodness, all the Git goodness that you had, you can bring it down to your data centers, and you can basically have a full approach of change tracking and everything, and while deploying your while deploying your Kubernetes clusters and pods. Moving along with, you get integrated Defender governance, monitoring, and all the DevOps toolkit. So basically, you have a full flexibility and with all the goodness that we talked about earlier as well. Okay, so basically, how we are getting all these is you start with Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes, Azure Arc enabled SQL managed instance, Azure Arc enabled PostgreSQL, but the underlying infrastructure is either can be sitting on Azure Stack HCI, it can be a VMware workload, it can be on AWS, GCP, or any edge IoT edge devices as well. So all of those you can utilize to run your basically cloud native applications. You can use SQL Managed Instance, which is basically, it is a PaaS service from Microsoft, which basically gives you a a kind of a similar experience, similar as your on-premises SQL, wherein you don't need to manage the operating system layer on top of it. Same goes for Azure Arc enabled Postgres. That's also a platform as a service that you are getting from Microsoft, and that you can manage over any of these. This is not limited to this. Even though if your data center is running on not only AWS, it can be IBM, it can be Alibaba Cloud, it can be any other cloud, or it can be any of your on-premises locations, and you can just onboard them to Azure Arc. So moving along to the next one, which is going to be the harness data insights from your cloud to edge. We'll talk about how you can do that. So first thing, it starts with you get all the accelerated innovation where your the cloud services that you're getting, AI capabilities, integration with cognitive services or next generation app for any continuous insights. So basically what happens is once you have your data instances, once you have your all the uh, once you have your services running on Azure Arc, it actually enables you to expand your boundaries and utilize the Azure cloud services as well within your own environment, and as well as the connectivity to other environments becomes really easy. In terms of identity and access, it becomes really easy because you can use multiple identity methodology that we are going to talk about in coming slides. So that brings down for us what we can do in terms of the data estate. And you can deploy Azure Arc enabled machine learning. You can also deploy, we have already talked about the managed instance and post GRE. And that's basically gives you a full multi-layered approach where you get all the data services and your data locations defined within Azure Arc. So this is really close to my heart, which is secure, govern across the environments, which is basically when we are talking about security, it comes down to it always comes down to, okay, we have our cloud environment, we have secured it enough, we have our Sentinel, we have our Defender, we have Azure Monitor, all of these are running. But what about the service which is running on-prem? Or what about the Kubernetes cluster which is running on-prem? So what we have is we can go with Azure Arc. What you do is you onboard it to Azure Arc services, and then you can utilize the Defender for Cloud, you can utilize Sentinel, you can utilize Azure Monitor, you can even utilize the Azure policies as well. So you have Azure policies that is currently governing your cloud environment. You will have the same kind of experience within your Arc enabled servers or Arc enabled SQLs. Basically, it helps you in terms of your overall security hardening, in terms of maintaining your compliance standards, in terms of making your infrastructure totally enabled with next generation features, and as well as you get proper detection and response. And so you can utilize all the if you work with Sentinel, you know it comes with automated response functionalities, so you can easily apply your automated responses to all of these whenever there is a security incident that happens. So that's more of a secure and govern of your environments. Then moving along, what we are looking at is meeting the regulatory compliance. That's always has been uh, sorry, that's always has been a pain, and we have already talked about this a bit in previous slides. So the biggest challenge that Azure Arc basically it solves is we have data residency meet we wherever we have data residency requirements, right? It meets the data residency requirements, and it helps you maintain the data sovereignty. You have some data that should be within some, let's say, EU boundaries, or it has to be within some specific country boundaries. You can specifically make sure that that data stays there. You deploy Azure Arc, and still you can utilize all the great services that Azure has to offer. Also, from edge computing perspective, there has been a lot of issues around that. I remember working with a couple of organizations who are using edge computing. They have a lot of they have some systems on the they have some systems enabled, and they are having some from operations perspective, and as well as from the whenever we talk about migrating those or using something else in terms of next generation cloud services. For that, they always refrain from doing that, where that's where Azure Arc helps you meeting the connectivity needs, where you have where your server have to be on site, or where your appliance has to be on site, and as well as giving you the full functionality around operate around your operations, around your security, and as well as making sure that you can do all the configurations management from there as well. Okay, so basically we talk about, there is a couple of areas and basically which is currently generally available, and there is a lot of areas which is in preview at the moment. We'll see it on the portal directly as well, but what we have at this point of time and generally available, we are going to talk about all of those, which is basically we are talking about Azure Arc enabled servers. So this is, if you are a service provider, this will be a really good one to start with your customers. Or if you want to try it out within your organization, it will be really a good start. And basically the best thing about this is free for you, so you can onboard your virtual machines and you can manage some things, unless or until you don't actually implement anything likes of Defender, likes of any update management or anything, or a specific monitoring where you're pulling out logs or something like that, you will not be charged for that. So you can just get a look and feel with Azure Arc by simply onboarding a couple of your servers to Azure Arc enabled servers. Okay, what it gives you, it basically gives you capabilities around, first thing first, you can do it for your Linux workloads, you can do it your virtual machines which is running on, you can do it your virtual machines running on uh, running on VMware Hyper-V, and you can even do it for the bare metal workloads that you have. You get full inventory of it, you get the configuration management, so you can basically have the consistency of your VM extensions, what you have within your Azure environment, in terms of monitoring, in terms of security, in terms of update, in terms of any specific life cycle that you run on your machines. You can put governance policies for your machines uh, in terms of specifically like auditing the virtual machines, looking at the compliance requirements and all specific areas. You can put auto manage, you can put your automation accounts for automated updates and everything. In terms of security, we have already talked about this. You get Active Directory managed identity. This is what we are going to see in the quick demo as well, what all we have there. You get server security baselines that basically comes with auto manage. So there is a feature from Microsoft which enables you to set up your virtual machines based on the security baseline. So it basically gives you a couple of predefined options that you can pick from, and whenever you deploy a machine, it will get automatically or it will get automatically configured with all those security baselines and required controls. And also you can have a role-based access controls to the servers as well. So basically it is any infrastructure, but with all the familiar tools that you have within your Azure environment. Okay, the next one is basically Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes. So you get the same experience. You get the same experience what we talked about in virtual machines, and we talked about Azure Arc enabled servers. So you can run AKS on any, you can run Azure Kubernetes service on Azure Stack HCI or any Windows server. You can do multiple 3P Kubernetes flavors. You can do any configurations, you can deploy it in any configuration, have the change management tracking, everything in place with the help of GitOps. You can apply all the security measures that you can do at this point of time within and not within your Azure Kubernetes instance. You can do all of those, no matter where exactly and what exactly you are running. Like either it can be GKE, either it can be your VMware Tanzu, it can be a Nutanix box, it can be anything related to anything that is running Kubernetes. It will be able to pick that one up. So you can simply connect, manage, and operate your Kubernetes clusters without going anywhere. It will be totally on your Azure environment itself. Okay, from security standpoint, what we are saying is we have Defender, and Defender for Cloud is amazing. So what you get is continuous assessment. It gives you all the details of where exactly the vulnerability is, what all things you have. It basically keeps your security posture intact every time when you're doing anything. It if you're making any changes, it straight away picks up, okay, this is how it is configured, it should not be like that. You don't have private endpoints, you don't have this, that, or some vulnerabilities there. It basically helps you out in terms of maintaining the Azure security benchmark across, and as well as it will help you in terms of any security alerts coming in, and you'll be able to manage all those for your Azure Arc enabled, all the services that you have. Okay, so deploying Defender to the servers specifically, so you can, in your Azure Arc enabled servers, you don't need to deploy any different agent, or you don't need to reinstall any different agent. It will be automatically deployed through the portal itself. You get a full view of your on-premises servers, which is running with that, with the full vulnerability assessment. So as you know, the Azure security, as Azure Defender works with Qualys offering. It has a Qualys offering which basically does the full vulnerability scanning of your overall virtual machines. You get the just in time. You get malware protection. You get all the guardrails with policies and all, but which gets enforced through the Defender. Similarly, we have a single pane of glass for all your Kubernetes clusters as well. So what you're getting is all the Kubernetes security. Defender for containers. It came out, I'll say, quite recently. So now we have Defender for containers that you can apply to Azure Arc to your Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes. Same for Defender for SQL. As so for the SQL as well, Defender for SQL, you can apply it to your all your Arc enabled SQL servers, either being a SQL managed instance on Azure Arc, or either being a SQL server on Azure Arc. And basically it gives you all the details around how you are going to remediate the vulnerabilities, how you are going to, we are going to see that in action in a couple of minutes. Also, it gives you all the monitoring in terms of in terms of any kind of threats, in terms of any kind of SQL injection or any other stuff that is happening within your environment. So yeah, moving along, the last thing that we are talking about here is monitoring. So basically, when we say monitoring, the first thing that comes into our mind is there is going to be an agent, there is going to be an extension. So even rolling out the extensions, agents is going to be seamless. As you can see uh, here on the screen, for the Arc enabled server, this is a Tailwind server which is Arc enabled. This is Microsoft screenshot, not mine, where we are looking at all the extensions, which is Microsoft Monitoring Agent, Dependency Agent, Azure Monitor, Windows Agent, all the agents. You can manage the agents through your Azure portal itself. You don't need to interact with the services. And as you can see, you have an option that you can click, which is basically add, and you can add any extension that you want. So same for same for Kubernetes. You have policy insights, you have open service, you have Azure Monitor for containers. You can install all these extensions anywhere, anywhere, anytime this particular within this particular portal.azure.com itself. Okay, so let me just, okay. Perfect. So we talked about GitOps a little bit, right? It was just a view of it. So when we are doing Arc enabled servers, right, we get all the principles, and it all we can apply within the GitOps. So basically, using your Git as a source of truth system, deploying everything through it, making sure that all the changes are controlled. You have a state, you have a basically declaration of version within your source control, and anything you can basically you can maintain your desired state configuration. So that's all the GitOps principles gets applied to your Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes. So this is a quick flow where we are looking at any source which is coming in, as we talked about, either GKE, or it can be Azure Kubernetes Service on HCI. It can be Elastic Kubernetes Service. It can be Rancher. It can be any other Kubernetes infrastructure that gets connected to Azure Arc Kubernetes cluster. And then what you get is all the GitOps configuration, which is being managed. All the guys with Kubernetes experience, they will explain it better than me. Uh, but this space, you get all the Git goodness within the environment with wherever you wherever you are running your uh, wherever you are running your Kubernetes services at the moment. Moving along, sorry, I guess oh, we didn't touch upon this one. So we have Defender for containers as well. Uh, Oh, I guess we did. It's a duplicate from my side. Sorry for that. So yeah, so basically what you get is Azure Arc enabled data service. Within all the Azure Arc enabled data services, you have everything. You get always up to date. You get all the new feed functionalities. And this basically applies to all the Azure Arc services. You get multi-layered security. You get the elastic scale where you can specifically scale up, scale down your services. If you need your SQL Server to be expanded, that can be expanded, and you can easily integrate it with your DevOps services. So basically, you are getting full DevOps services. You can do whatever that you do at this point of time within your DevOps environment to your Arc-enabled services as well. Okay, let's see how we are doing with the time, and we will move along. I have a couple of slides as well that to go through, but I just want to have a quick view on the Azure Arc portal itself. So, okay. So here I am. Everyone is familiar with this guy, which is portal.azure.com. And if I search for Azure Arc on the top, let's see what we get. So here is our Azure Arc, where we are looking at loads of services. So you have a lot of like custom domains, custom locations. You have data control planes. You have resource bridges, which is in preview at this point of time. You have service principals that you can utilize within the Azure Arc environment. You have private link scopes, which you can use to connect and access your PaaS services to your within a virtual network environment to your Azure Arc environments. You have Azure Arc enabled virtual machines. You have Azure Arc enabled servers. You have Azure Arc enabled uh, HCI. You have Azure Arc enabled. You have SQL servers. You have VMware vCenters. So even you can have VMware vCenters as well. So as you can see, there is a lot of services here, which is in preview at this point of time, uh, which will be GA in near future. And you are going to get all these good services, all this goodness really soon with all this coming into GA. So the services span across everything. I believe at this point of time, it is going everywhere. You can also get all these services of like if you have to deploy API management, if you have to deploy app services, you event rate functions, all of these functionalities you can basically create within your Azure Arc environment itself. Okay, what we are going to look at today is going to be Azure Arc enabled server. So to be very honest, I didn't had a server which is running on-prem, because when you're onboarding, there is a whole lot of process that you need to do. If you try to be over smart and you try to onboard a virtual machine which is running on Azure to Azure Arc, it identifies it immediately, and it says, okay, no, this is an Azure machine already. Why do you want to onboard it to Azure Arc? You're getting everything there. So what I did is I onboarded my laptop to it. So this is not the right way to do it. It is for servers, it says for servers, but you can still do it. So onboarding, so before we get into this, right, let's see how the onboarding process looks. So if you have to onboard a server, and that's what I was saying, it is going to be a starting point. You just click on add on the top here. You get an option to do it with a single server. You can do it with add update management. So basically update management can be connected to this one with wherever you have update management deployed. If you have used update management, you can use it for your on-prem servers as well. If you want to do multiple, you want to generate a script that you want to push through GPOs or something, you can go with add multiple servers. If you want to use a single server, which I did for my PC, you can do that as well. So you just go into this, you click on generate script. It is going to ask you a couple of things, like what all services that you have here. Do you have access to Azure services over HTTPS, or do you use a proxy server? What is going to be the connectivity method and all those things? And you should be having local administrator permission to onboard a server on this. So it basically starts with this. It basically asks you which subscription that you want to put it in, what is going to be the resource group, the target resource group, just because the server is going to give you a similar experience what you get on prem. So is what you get on Azure. Sorry. Yeah. So that's why it has to be in some resource group. It will ask you what region, the telemetry about that is going to be, where it is going to be stored. What is the operating system it is? Either it is Windows or it is Linux. And let me just select something here. Then there is a couple of these are non-mandatory, but it is recommended to have all these tags defined, at least just to identify, because this server is running somewhere in your data center. And there will be a situation, let's say in an ideal world, what will happen is everyone will start using all the services through this one. And let's say your data center management staff, and if they are not there for some reason, and if someone has to go back and check, okay, I was using some XYZ server, where is that? So you will not even be able to identify where is that data set, which data center it is running, and all those. So you can basically define your tags, or basically I'll just select something. So it's just or you can define, let's say state or district is going to be Dublin, etc., etc. You can put in your country and everything. And also from tagging perspective, so these are some tags which is recommended in terms of identifying the server where it is running and all those. But after that, the thing comes into play is your custom tags, which is your one of your governance feature, where you identify what is the server, what is the purpose of it, who is the owner of that, where is the cost going, and all those things that you get with the help of these custom tags, where you can put in all these. But even though if you leave all these, there is not going to be an issue. This is going to give you a script. So if you look at this, this is going to give you a full script, which you can run on your PowerShell. So here on PowerShell, I have that script. And if you run the script, what it is going to do is, we'll just run through this here. So it is basically going to install the connected machine agent first. It is going to look for what all the physical memory that you have, what is the PowerShell version, the .NET version, and what it will do is it will download the package for connected machine agent, and it will install. Okay. Once the connected machine agent is installed, what it does is it registers you with the with your Azure environment. For this, basically, what you need is you need Azure Arc Administrator or roles, or there are multiple roles that you can find on Microsoft website. Those roles, a person with one of those roles has to be there, because this will ask you to log in. Okay, this will ask you to log in. It will pop up it will pop up Azure login window in your preferred browser, and then it will ask you for credentials. Once you sign into that, it will basically take you here. It will basically spits out this piece where you're looking at a portal URL. So if you see this guy, this is basically talking about, so any virtual machines in Azure, you see something like this. So where you have your subscription defined, where you have your resource group, your providers, and then goes the name of the resource. So if you take this URL and paste it into your, that's the title. I'll just copy this guy. Old command line habits. I was just clicking on this one, and here. So what we get is this. So there is a server. It says it's a server at this point of time. It has definitely detected that this is a Windows 10 Pro machine. And if I go here, if I try host name, you can see it's the same name what we are seeing there. So this is the same machine you can see here. You get all the things. You get you can manage updates from here. Uh, I'll just go back on overview. You can manage updates from here. From logging and monitoring perspective, you can see the logs from here. You can get insights like monitoring insights from here, and you can define monitoring insights on this one. You can put in policies and even the guest configuration policies. So anything that you want to configure on your systems, you will get the change tracking. So you can enable the change tracking on the machine as well, and as well as the security controls that we talked about. So all of these you are getting here, where uh, and this exactly gives you the look and feel, and as well as the overall experience in from experience perspective, totally Azure like server information. Okay, even if you go on your all resources, you will see a machine, you will see a virtual machine here. It basically, if you check the type of this, it will say it's a arc enabled virtual machine, but it will stay it within your virtual machines only. Okay, so yeah, so this is one piece. Now let's say if this machine has to, so let's say if my machine has to connect to a, a storage account, or maybe maybe an automation account or something like that. So let's say if I have to execute an automation account runbook through PowerShell on this EU test automation account. So the first thing is going to be I need to set up some authentication mechanism. So what happens is when you are onboarding a machine to Azure Arc, right? It automatically creates and manage identity for that. So what is basically a managed identity? If you are not aware of managed identity, so earlier in days, what we used to do for authentication for any services from Azure is we used to create a service principal. That is basically an identity that we used to register within Azure AD, and we used to use the credentials of that, likes of the tenant ID, the application ID, and the client secret to authenticate to Azure and do our operations in that. But in some cases now, what the best way to do this, because we used to have a lot of noise around the credentials getting expired, the keys getting expired, and as well as hard coding of this in some DevOps processes, we used to do that. Now the managed identity basically helps you in terms of authenticating between two services without any interactions. So basically you can use the whole RBAC system here. You can use, and instead of going with a service principal or doing an enterprise app, like providing an access to an enterprise app, what you can do is you can go to access control, you can go here, let's add a co-administrator. Sorry, add a role assignment, and I'm going to give this guy just a reader. If I go next, you have user group and service principal. You have manage identity option here. So you go in manage identity, and you can see here you have a couple of options here. So you get all system assigned managed identities, automation accounts, and there is an option called server Azure Arc. So if you select that, see, this is the same machine that we are talking about. So now this machine have access to our environment here. So basically this machine can access anything within this automation account. You can do the same. You can do the same. And let's say if you want to give access for this machine to access anything within this resource group, you can just go and add that machine as a, let's say, contributor on this one or reader on this one. So yeah, this is moved here now. So you can give it owner, next, manage identity, and you get the same experience here. So now if I have to, now if I have to connect to my, sorry. So now if I have to connect to my Azure account, right, I don't need to go through all the pain of signing in and everything. I can just use the manage identity, and I'll be able to log into my account, and I'll be able to access anything within this. I have done that on not on subscription level at this point of time. That's why it might ask me for login. But in terms of accessing any Azure services, or in terms of accessing any cloud services, the identity piece where you are authenticating to that service, or your Azure portal, it can be done through this. So this will be a really handy option for you. Let's say if you're running some jobs on your laptop, or not on your laptop, on your servers, which actually goes to, let's say, a storage account, delete something, or does something, you can use the manage identity, even or when the server is sitting in your data center. So there is a server, then let's say there is a Linux server sitting in your data center, you enabled manage identity, that Linux server, and you are running a continuous job on that Linux server will be able to deploy anything or delete anything or change anything, whatever it has access through RBAC roles. That makes, basically we get as an added advantage once we enable any Arc, when once we enable any server with Azure Arc. Okay, so let's get back to our presentation here, and I have one specific, I'll just show a couple of, this is basically we are talking about the views. So currently this is the demo environment, so I don't have many services defined at this point of time. But if you see what you get as a, from the experience perspective, you're getting all resources as I showed you. You'll get all this along with your virtual machines. You'll see your Azure Arc enabled. There will be a slight change in the logo, just so you can identify which one is Azure native and which one is Azure Arc, but you'll get all those in the single pane. From compliance state, you can basically push, let's say, Windows 2019 compliance policies. You can put it on the virtual machines, and you'll get what all is not basically compliant, or what is the problems. Same for update management and all, you will be able to manage them same as it is. You can see their compliance state from for update. You can even enroll them to your update management, and you'll be able to utilize the update management for all your on-premises servers as well, which is Arc enabled. And auto manage, that this is what I was talking about, uh, which is a service from Microsoft. So anytime if you want to apply a configuration profile, which is basically I'll say a security baseline, a environment baseline based on environment, different environments. So you can basically apply it production kind or dev test kind, or if even your custom profiles that you build based on your organization requirement. So you can basically manage, maintain all the environment needs, or your basically onboarding and offboarding or configuration of your all the any of the servers, and you just have to use the auto manage and enable it. This is basically coming as an advantage to you once you onboard a server to Azure Arc. Defender for cloud, we have talked about already. There is one interesting thing that we should be looking at is any alerts that comes in, and for from Defender perspective, it basically gives you a full view where exactly what server exactly is this. And if you see the tags that we have defined, that will actually help you identify, okay, this is running on AWS and this is the server, and basically this is the alert that we have got, and we need to investigate that. And once you have that once you have that configured in Sentinel, you'll be easily able to streamline all these. Okay. These are the additional services. I'll just skip through these. We have already talked about manage identities. Okay, yeah. So this is all from my side for today. We have a really good resource, which is aka.ms/Azure Arc Jumpstart. So what I have covered today is basics and where you can apply that. It's basically the ABCs of Azure Arc at this point of time. But if you want to go ahead with this, if you want to start your Azure Arc journey, this is a really good resource that I will recommend in terms of starting your journey with Azure Arc. So this is the website. It's called azurearcjumpstart.io, and you have every scenarios and everything mentioned over here. From use cases perspective, when you are working with your customers, your own environment, where you are looking at hybrid cloud, you have a couple of workspace. You have on the Azure Architecture Center, you have a couple of architectures defined for from Azure Arc perspective. So how you manage the configuration on Azure Arc enabled servers, how you do the hybrid data management and policies. So you already have architectures defined, how you're going to deploy the Azure Arc enabled SQL managed instances and perform the disaster recovery for that. So all of those architectures you can, if you haven't seen this before, this website, just I would highly recommend this one, which is basically if you Google Azure Architecture Center, you will be able to find this website, and you have tons and tons of architecture. Under the hybrid plus multi-cloud, you will find all the Azure Arc content, or you can do a simple search on this one. You'll be able to find all the details of what all is there and what all the use cases people are doing, and even you can contribute to that as well. Yeah, with this, I'll say thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in. uh, I hope you have got some good insights about Azure Arc, and you'll start exploring it more and more.
Excellent job.
Thanks, Frank.
Yes, very good. Excellent presentation on Azure from Tushar.
Thank you so much. I really love
Anybody?
Hey,
this.
Solomon.
Any
Yeah,
questions?
I'm here, and that was a great presentation. Although I missed some of it, but yeah, it's awesome. You know, I already told you I have been I've been trying to make a blog post which I've not really completed, and it has to do with Azure Arc. It's something that I feel people should really know more about when you're looking at Azure infrastructure. It's a great service. Yeah, and that was a great presentation.
Yeah, mostly when I'm talking to customers, when we are talking to basically when we are talking from cloud adoption journey, right? The first thing that I hear, okay, there is definitely going to be some things which will be left out. And I see the worry lines for all the administrators and even the application owners, there will be latencies and everything. In that case, I definitely say, okay, even if you're not starting with Azure, you're not going on cloud at this point of time, start with, just get the taste of cloud. You will feel that, okay, how things are going to be easy for you. Your update management tasks, your normal day-to-day tasks on configuration management, all of those things is going to be so easy for you. And once you get that feel of it, definitely you will be the person recommending your management, or you'll be the person taking it the step forward, that okay, I want to move this to cloud. Even though if you don't, it will be really really helpful for you in terms of making that environment more secure, and as well as getting more flexibility around your environment with the new functionalities, whatever is coming in from Azure side.
Yeah, that's actually one of the greatest tools to me in terms of when you're managing your servers on-prem and
Yeah,
other cloud services. You can just have that feel from one point. Yeah. So
yeah.
great presentation. That
Thank
was a
you.
very great presentation. Like awesome. Although I still have demo that I'm coming for with Azure Arc. Like I'm preparing the demo and I'll just see how I'll do that real quick. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Yeah, hopefully next time we'll get into more complex demonstrations around this, and we'll get into the Kubernetes services deploying Azure, and along with Azure Arc enabled data services. So we'll have more and more. So that's where the Azure Arc Jumpstart is a great starting point. You can get into that, and you have tons and tons of options there. You have tons and tons of tutorials there that you can follow at this point of time. Perfect.
Very good.
I'll say
Anybody?
thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for hosting me.
You're
It was
welcome,
a great
and
pleasure talking
You're
with you.
welcome.
we hope to have you back again soon.
Definitely.
Um, as I say, we have that other show, The Journey to the Cloud. It's on the
Huh?
first Thursday of every month. So
Yeah, June 2nd is the next one.
June 2nd, then, is it?
Yeah, I believe that's a Tuesday or a Thursday.
Okay. And is there any speakers lined up for it? Do you know? Or
Iwona asked to come
oh
back.
yes,
Yeah, so I think we have one lined up so far.
Okay, very good.
Perfect.
So we're just coming up nearly on the hour, so I can just see if anybody else has any questions. They can pop in the chat or anything. No more? No more takers? Okay, so we can end the live broadcasting, and we'll be back here again at 8 o'clock Irish and UK time. And in the US, it'll be 2 to 3, Dan, is that right?
2 to 3 my time, 3 to 4 Eastern, and 12 to 1 Satya's time.
Okay. Thank you, Satya, for joining us as well. Okay. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye bye. Yeah,
Bye everyone.
bye. See you next